So this is me, driving a professional kart for the first time 9 years ago. How good am I here? Well, I'll just let it play out.
You surprise me to how shit you are.
Hey there guys, and welcome to FP1, and welcome to a slightly different video this week on the channel. Now, over the course of the last year, I've spent a lot of time ripping into some of the drivers at the pinnacle of motorsport, to the point where really it's just a personality trait. At the end of the day though, we've got to consider the fact that it takes an immense amount of skill and determination to actually get to that stage. Or if your name ends in Mazepin, just a lot of daddy's money. Not everyone is that well off though, and getting started on the road to motorsport glory can be a really challenging experience. Hopefully this video though will give you at least a little bit of insight into the challenges facing young talents in the ultra competitive world of motor racing. So let's jump straight into it with the title card now, shall we? So if you couldn't tell already from that karting footage, I'm not a racing driver, and nowhere close to one. And quite frankly, it wouldn't make sense for me, who spent his entire life being compared to the Fat Controller, to give you any advice at all. Which is why I got some help. Many of you will remember that in a video a few weeks back, I announced a partnership between me and an upcoming star, Ethan Davis, who's at the point of transitioning from karting to single-seater race cars. So then, who better to ask about how to get the best first step on the motorsport ladder? So Ethan, welcome to the channel. Firstly, how are you? You okay?
I'm fine, thanks, yeah.
Cool. So I guess, first question from me is, and just for the fans as well, because I'm sure people might not know who you are, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
My name's Ethan Davis. I'm a racing driver. I used to be an esports player. I used to play first-person shooters. I've always been into motorsport, never really had the money for it. And then my esports organisation that I played for, Prosperity, you can see them on my suit over there. The big P kind of looks like the Superman logo, but isn't. They gave me some sponsorship money, and I went out and did a bit of racing, got quicker and quicker, and here we are, I guess. And it's been a bit mad.
Yeah, I guess that kind of leads on to my first question, but how did you actually get into motorsport? Where did it come from?
So I went to Lanzarote at 8 years old on a family holiday, and we went to this go-kart track, and I very quickly, I'd never driven anything before, I found myself lapping very close to the lap record. I think I was about 2 or 3 tenths off the lap record on my first session in the cadet karts, which was quite impressive. Obviously I didn't know, I was just there to have some fun. Never really led anywhere, but I always loved motorsport. I'd always watch highlights if I could. But back then I was doing a lot of football, as you do. I was never very good at football, but I did it because my dad used to do a lot of football, cricket, rugby, that sort of thing. And I did that. So I didn't really get to watch F1 at the weekend, but I'd always watch the highlights with my dad, and I'd always love it. And then as I got older, I bought myself a PC. I started playing CSGO. I was quite good at it, and I attended some national events and did that. And my last team was Prosperity. When that team, we decided to disband after a pretty okay season, but it just didn't go how we wanted. So we disbanded, and I said, can I have some money? I want to go karting, I want to go racing, I want to see what I can do. And he gave me not much money, mind. He wanted just to see if I was any good for a start. So he gave me some money to do a bit at Brentwood karting track. I did my first Club 100 test at Buckmore Park. And I was lapping with the people in the mid, I think 45.8 was my best, which is quite good for Buckmore in the Club 100 karts. And then I got a test in a senior Rotax at Lid. I was there with Super GT, Race Streamer Rob, that lot, and I had my first crash. That wasn't great. Went straight into a wall because the throttle cable got stuck. Ooh. That's fine. But at that point, I decided to buy my own kart, do F100, which I got a podium in my first round. Best novice, youngest podium sitter in Aqua. Here we are.
So, one of the first challenges facing drivers is not necessarily how to start, but where to start. Looking at the current crop of talent in Formula 1, you'll notice that it's hard to find a driver who hasn't raced in or around Europe over the course of their junior career. In some cases, we've even seen drivers take big sacrifices by leaving their old lives behind and moving abroad to continue their racing career. Ex-Red Bull drivers Danny Kvyat and Daniel Ricciardo are success stories that spring to mind here. Yeah, I did just use Daniel Kvyat and success in the same sentence. But why is this? Well, I talked to Ethan to find out. Let's look at just motor racing karting on a whole. I think one thing that we hear from a lot of the Formula 1 drivers and a lot of drivers that go into quite high up levels in motorsport, they talk about Europe and they talk about going to Europe and starting that career off in Europe. Why is that so key? Why is that so important?
America and North America has been very centered around NASCAR really. IndyCar nowadays, but back in the day it was more NASCAR orientated. So stock cars, street stocks, you got dirt cars, all of that sort of thing. And that's fine. But if you wanted to make it to Formula One, it had to be in Europe. Because that's where it was the primary focus. Formula One, pinnacle of motorsport, especially in Europe, is seen as. So you come over to Europe and you have this amazing talent pool of drivers from Italy, Finland, wherever it is, you name it, they've got some of the best drivers in the world. And people will spend hundreds of thousands per year just to race in go-karts in Europe. And it's stupid money.
Oh yeah, it's. I mean, I wouldn't mind a couple of $100,000. That'd be nice. But I guess you got all the F1 teams in Europe, and a lot of them actually in the UK as well. Is that another factor, perhaps? Do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you want to get noticed by an F1 team, the best thing to do is drive on their doorstep, I guess. So if you want to get noticed by Ferrari, this may be completely incorrect, but I'm guessing the best way to do it would be to drive the Tony car in Italy. And do the Italian championships or the European championships. If you wanted to get noticed by, say, probably McLaren, you'd do more of the UK championships. I don't really think where you drive is the issue, it's what you drive.
Right.
If you're doing a UK championship versus a European championship, I think they'll look at you just the same. I think that comes because the talent pool is very similar. In fact, they intertwine a lot. A lot of them are doing double duty, which is quite impressive if you ask me. Racing in multiple championships at once, it's beyond mind-boggling how they cope with it. Different tyres, different fuel mixtures, there's a lot to think about, and different setups for different tracks, different karts, different engines. It's really hardcore.
So location is a big deal then. And with Europe the home of the vast majority of Formula One teams, if you hope to get noticed, that's really the place to be. But alongside that, what other issues can the young motorsport talent face in the junior categories? Motorsport at the end of the day is not easy. I think there's several challenges down the road. I know you've had your fair share. What would you say would be the biggest kind of challenges, the biggest hurdles that you've had to overcome in just your short motorsport career so far?
It's going to be really cliche, but the money. And the money and my age has had actually quite a big impact on it. You've come in quite late, and I've been looked at by especially a lot of the older people, and they've said, "Oh, but you're not going to get anywhere because you started this when you're 15. We've got people who have started when they're 4," which, in my opinion, shouldn't really be the biggest factor in the world. Because if you can push some pedals and turn a wheel, which isn't all it is, by the way, this is just simplifying it massively. If you're good at that, you should have the opportunity to go further. But because the viewerships are so high in a lot of these championships, the viewership drives the cost. And that's just the way it is, all the way up to F1, from grassroots to F1, and the cost is stupid. Formula 4 was made to be a max cost of 100,000 per year, which in itself is huge, right? But that didn't stay true, because it's 200,000 plus for a seat in British Formula 4. Which differs around the world, but in British Formula 4, Italian Formula 4, German Formula 4, those ones are really expensive to get a decent seat.
And I guess it kind of feeds back into not just the actual money to start in the series, but getting a good team as well. If I look at, say, Formula 2, I know it's a little bit higher up the ladder, but you look at, say, getting into someone like a Prema or an ART, whereas if you end up with, say, a Trident car, you end up with, I guess, less experienced engineers or just a less successful team. What drives that at the end of the day? Why is it so? Why in a spec series like you have in, all the junior Formula pretty much? Why do we still see such a gap between the cars?
If you want a real spec series, you need to look at the W series, because all of the cars are run by one team, right? And that is a pure spec series. There is no change in between that. Whereas if you look at somewhere like F2, Prema will have better engineers than Charoux or Trident, right? And that's just because they can afford it, because the drivers that they're getting in have more money, and because they've won the championship previously, they can bump up their price.
Right. And if we just forget about money for a second, and then obviously that's hard to do in motor racing, but what other hurdles are there? Because I think everyone hears about money, but what else is there? What other, I guess, challenges that you maybe didn't expect to face coming into it have you seen?
Here's a pretty weird one, right? It's quite the people in the sport are quite judgy, and especially the parents. And there's still a massive stigma against race at the lower levels. There's also a stigma against disability, both physical and neurodevelopmental, such as autism. If you've got an autistic driver, they'll be looked down upon. And people say this and think, really though? Well, it does happen. And you have to specify these things on the race license. And if you specify it, you can get a call up from Motorsport UK and they can question it. They can get you tested and things like that. So if you have ADHD, for example, you have to specify that. And if you're not on medication for it, and you do fine without medication for it, the Motorsport UK can get you referred to be put on medication. Otherwise, they won't let you race. And another big thing is getting sponsorship as a driver. Yeah. Especially nowadays in the times of the COVID, because viewership is far lower. So sponsors don't have much money to give away anyway because of the economy damage. But the viewership is lower, so therefore there's less incentive for them to do so. And then if you put that on top of someone with less experience, someone who hasn't been doing it since they're 4 years old and has 10 titles to their name, good luck, have fun. It's not easy whatsoever. It's really demoralizing and takes away a lot of your dignity and pride, because you have to call these people and you have to cold call people, and it's really embarrassing. But you've got to send these emails. I sent, I think, 175 emails before I got my first yes. Yeah. And then I got a few. I've less companies and more people. There are a lot of people who want to, if they like you, they'll give you some money and they'll just say, hey, give me some tickets, I'll come along. Things like that. And that's the only way to do it, really, in my position at the moment. But I'm hoping to get some more companies on board for 2022 and hopefully get myself in a single-seater.
Yeah, that kind of leads me on to, I know you kind of touched on it there, but if we go back to the judginess of junior racing, how do you overcome that? What's the best way to get over that kind of atmosphere? Is there a way, or what would you recommend to kind of minimize it in that case?
Yeah, just ignore. There's two ways. You can either ignore it completely and then do your talking on the track, as somebody else in Formula One said, and that backfired on them, Mr. Mazepin. You can do the talking on the track, or you can feed into it and you can try and get in their head back. Because at the end of the day, they probably have no malice towards you, but you're a competitor and they'll pick on everything there is to pick on to get in your head. So you've got a choice. You've either got to ignore it all and do it all on the track, or you feed into it and play into their head. And that was quite hard for me at the beginning, because in F100, there's a lot of older people who have won championships in the past and are very, very quick still. And it was hard because you don't want to talk back to these people, because you're someone with very little experience, no wins really. I won the Buckmore 24-hour, but that was it. And it just became a bit of a still inside the head. Get that for the first race. Had a lot of mechanical issues in the first weekend, and they were playing on that. But I did, I did it without knowing really, but I got in one of the driver's heads by overtaking him in practice, in the 3-lap practice before the race. And I had people coming up to me saying, you really got into his head and things like that. So I'm still learning about the subtleties of this, but it is the smallest things that will throw someone off their game.
So it's almost like you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah, almost. And it's really toxic and it feeds into it. But you've got to find out someone's weaknesses without being a dick, right? Because other people will resort to being a dick, but that's not really the way to go about it. You got to find out where they're weak, but then don't exploit it. Just do the simple things, like say good luck before a race and shake their hand, because they won't be expecting that. So that's how I got around. That's how I got around the judginess. Because another story, at Kimbolton, I needed some lead because I was underweight, believe it or not. I've never been underweight for anything in my life. I
can't talk. I really can't talk. So.
And I needed some lead, and there was somebody in the awning, and he had some of George Russell's old lead. Because he's friends with George Russell's dad. So I got some of George Russell's lead, but he wouldn't let it go throughout the whole weekend. Oh, that's going to cost you. It's going to cost you. I'll charge you. He didn't charge me for it, but he was letting it play in my head, knowing that I don't have the budget I don't have the biggest budget in the world. And he was just playing in it and putting that in my head. And I had a brake failure on the Saturday. My brake pads, we just completely burnt them out. And he was going out just a session before. He was going, oh, those brakes look a bit itchy. I wouldn't go out and learn those if I were you. You'd end up in a wall, just trying to get in your head, you know? And it's this really toxic environment that I think the motorsport needs to get over, to allow the young people with talent to get up there, especially if they've got disabilities of any kind. Because it is very judgy. Even if you don't have disabilities, you'll get judged whether you make a mistake or not, right? They will find something in your driving.
So that then was a brief look at the key struggles and challenges faced by the young talents moving up the first steps in the junior single-seater ladder, through the eyes of one such talent, and the Fat Controller lookalike. Ethan is still raising money for a shot at Formula 4 later this year, so I'll leave a link to his fundraiser down in the description of this video. Even if you could donate just a little, I'm sure it would really help him out. And while you're down there, if you enjoyed the video, then I'd really appreciate if you left a like and subscribe for future uploads. Anyway, that's all from me. I'll catch you later this week with another video, but until then, have a good one.